a vision came over me, and I don't know where it came from, but I'm so glad it came, that someday I'm going to run across the United States. I'm going to run from New York to Seattle. And it's one of those visions that come to you that just, it feels right. And it feels like a new North Star. I was so run down, so out of energy, and just chasing shiny objects with kind of no greater purpose, no greater meaning. This felt right. And I hadn't yet lined up my ducks at all. It felt totally impossible, but I did know the only shot I'll ever have of making this happen is if I can stay sober, and if I can keep working a day at a time to become the kind of person that can do this kind of thing. It got me lacing up and training day after day after day. And that's the miracle, man, is when you keep showing up, every one of us is capable of way more than we ever envisioned. I'm able to start building the kind of life that I really want to live, and I'm excited to live, and I'm excited to embrace that gift of life. I'm really trying to enter a season of giving back, and I've been given such a gift to have had this experience and this adventure. It would be totally selfish for me just to sit on this, or for me to not honor that gift and everything my friends and family and supporters have provided.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of what we'll call our PurePower podcast here. And I'm so delighted to welcome an individual known to many in the PurePower community, Mr. Greg Nance from Bainbridge, Washington. Greg, welcome.
Don, thank you so much. Great to be here.
So, we want to pick up where we left off in many respects, right? It's been months and months since we had our initial conversation. And in that time in 2022, you completed what many would think unthinkable, and that is to run from the shores of the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific, precisely from Queens, New York, to the shores of Puget Sound in Washington State, your home stomping grounds. First of all, congratulations, and what a Herculean accomplishment.
Hey, Don, thank you. It was adventure of a lifetime, and I legitimately, honestly couldn't do without you. So grateful.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that, Greg. Over 3,000 miles, 80 days, 1 foot in front of the next, millions of steps, as it turns out,
Yep.
Right? And, it's easy to sort of say you've done it, but so much went into it, right? And I know you've talked about team and how critical that is to pulling off such a huge effort. And we feel so honored to be a part of that, quite honestly, Greg. So grateful to our brother, Mr. Tez Steinberg,
yes,
for introducing us, and for this special blend of herbs to really help you during the course of this effort. So we'll get into that, but I really want to quickly recap where this started for you. What it started as sort of more of a personal dream that then turned into a mission-driven dream. You just, if you would, take us back to the adversity that spawned this dream for you back in southern England in 2011, in the midst of you're at Cambridge getting an advanced degree, and where that was born, and how movement across the ground and your relationship with running really set this up years later.
Yeah. So back in 2011, a number of forces were in my life. So on one level, I am, chasing dreams and achieving dreams like I've never done before. And it feels so exciting and amazing. And there's all this stress and pressure and homesickness, being really far from the familiar. And with these new opportunities, there's new obstacles. There are new massive challenges that I don't know how to process. And too often in my young life, I would turn to alcohol and to drugs to kind of ease that overactive monkey mind of mine, and to just try to feel a little bit better about things. And that went from being a few time a week thing to an every night and an everyday thing, to the point where I was squandering a lot of money, my scholarship stipend. And it really came to a head there in December of 2011. I got a big talking to from the provost at Cambridge, who was, very, very, very displeased with me. And the first, and fortunately only time in my life I've been called a disgrace was by the provost. And that was, just kind of a ton of bricks coming down on me. And I was totally broke didn't have any money. I'd wasted, all of this. And the only way that I could feel a little bit better was to lace up and go get after it, knock out some miles in the British countryside. I had already registered for this foot race down on the Jurassic Coast, South England. And it was a grueling, grueling race. It's like really cold, it's rainy, it's windy, and you're on these cliffs running up and down over this. So like over 50 kilometers, I'm absolutely drained. And I remember crossing that finish line, being shocked that I was 10th place, up top 10, what? Impossible. And as they throw like a little blanket over me, because I'm like a wet dog shivering over here, and a vision came over me, and I don't know where it came from, but I'm so glad it came, that someday I'm going to run across the United States. I'm going to run from New York to Seattle. And it's one of those visions that come to you that just, it feels right. And it feels like a new North Star. And I was in a really pretty dark place where I had achieved all of these, I checked a lot of boxes of achievement, and I was a fundamentally broken person. I was so run down, so out of energy, and just chasing shiny objects with kind of no greater purpose, no greater meaning. This felt right. And I didn't, I hadn't yet lined up my ducks at all. And it felt totally impossible, but I did know the only shot I'll ever have of making this happen is if I can stay sober, and if I can keep working a day at a time to become the kind of person that can do this kind of thing. And it was a motivator. It got me lacing up and training day after day after day. And that's the miracle, man, is when you keep showing up, every one of us is capable of way more than we ever envisioned. And that was the realization there in December 2011. That very month, I finished this first ultra, and then I quit drinking. And I'm able to start building the kind of life that I really want to live, and I'm excited to live, and I'm excited to embrace that gift of life. And it all began right there, Southern England.
And thank you so much for that, Greg. It has me thinking, we make lots of resolutions to break bad habits and addictions. Yes. In particular. That's certainly been my experience. And that, our own self-doubts and in certain respects, criticism gets in the way of our sticking to those resolutions and commitments we make to ourselves. What is it that you found in yourself that allowed you to go from, had you tried to quit drinking before that time?
I had. So I think my drinking challenges began when I was 16. And I knew instantly, hey, this is not a good thing for me. Like, I'm getting in trouble, and I'm getting into fights, and I'm cutting class. So I knew very early on, hey, this is not in service to, some higher purpose, but it was a crutch. And it's what I felt I needed to sort of self-medicate to feel a little bit better. I tried to quit many, many times. And, the truth here is that because of my very fragile, very large, but very fragile ego, because my real life got so screwed up by this, and I got called out, this provost called a spade a spade. I was acting like a disgrace, blowing the stipend, not able to pay my rent or my textbooks. That is a disgraceful thing. What are you doing? Stop doing that. That fragility of my very large ego, that was the wake-up call that I actually needed. And, truthfully, I'd had 100 wake-up calls before. This was the first one that really was this public kind of projection of myself had really come crashing back to earth. And that was finally the moment that got through my thick skull. And that is what I really needed in that moment. I've never had a chance to thank the provost, but I owe him a thank you, because he finally broke through and actually told me what I needed to hear to actually take the right first steps. And tough love has its place. I'm a big kindness and compassion guy myself. So I'm working with folks trying to get on that track. I take a different tone, but sometimes we do need a little bit of tough love to get to the start line.
It's interesting because it's that tough love combined with, presumably, you had to repeatedly believe in yourself to know that you could continue making those right choices.
There's a combination, and I was on the boxing team at Cambridge, and when you're going and getting the daily catharsis of hitting a bag and hitting each other, and just a really great brotherhood of people, all coached by a wonderful roofer, Coach Ben Blows, who's a wonderful human. That support was so vital. And so anyone listening that's been struggling, is oftentimes it's about community and connection, because even if we're really courageous, even if we're trying to do the right thing, it's really hard. And we need to be kind of part of the peloton here. Someone else can help block some of that early wind, and that is going to help you find your stride and get into your groove. And so don't be like me. I was in denial. I wasn't vulnerable with anyone in my life. I lied and was deceitful and manipulative. And that was not service to me getting better and to moving forward. So be vulnerable, be open, be honest. That will help you to become accountable. And there's a lot of love and kindness in your orbit and sometimes from unexpected places, people that are rooting for you that you didn't even know were in your corner. But it starts with being open and honest. And until you get there, it's really hard for someone to help you if they don't know you need a hand.
Which referenced your relationship with the ego, putting a little pride aside, perhaps.
Yes,
and
my
the
goodness.
shame and letting go of it and just opening up.
Yep. And that is still, it's been 11 plus years now, but that is still my hang up is I've got thin skin. I've got a big ego. I wish that weren't true, but it's like kind of how I'm wired. And it means it's hard to do basic stuff that's frustrating. So I know that probably describes a few of us, and you do got to find a way to manage it and to build the connection, the community to help you get through it.
So I assume it's not been smooth sailing all the way through since 2011, right? There have been moments of self-doubt,
yes,
and self-criticism and wondering what the hell am I doing?
Yep.
And I wonder if you could take me to a moment either leading up to or during, or frankly, even after, where you encountered such significant self-doubt that called things into question so substantially. And if you have such a moment in mind, what's brought you back to push through, given the enormity of running coast to coast and the other missions that you've now accomplished as well?
Yeah, I think back to day one, literally putting my foot in the Atlantic, about to start this journey. And I had a moment of, what am I smoking? Like, this is the worst idea I've ever had. And this is going to go down. I turn around and I've got these smiling faces as my team. They're, clapping and saying like, yeah, like we're getting started. And there was the beautiful moment, like, wow, like I'm overthinking this. I just got to get going because I've got all these great people in my corner that are rooting for me. And I know we're going to gel. We're going to come together, make this happen. So that was the first inkling of like, this is going to be tough. And there's going to be a lot of self-doubt on the journey. And then 2 days later, day 3, I'm running into Philadelphia. I should be fresh as a daisy. I'm barely 120 miles into this. And my ankles are super swollen up because there's camber in some of these roads. There's like a little like 3 or 4 degree slope. And that puts a lot of pressure on your ankles, your knees, your IT bands, your hips. And I was feeling all of that. And there's a ton of self-doubt that creeps in, like, am I not trained for this? Like, am I not, clearly I've screwed up something if I'm this, banged up this soon into it. And at that moment, there's a man smoking a cigarette coming out of a convenience store, big teddy bear of a dude. This guy is probably benching 250 or more. And he asked, where are you running? And I, from New York to Seattle. And we strike up this great conversation. He's a recently retired firefighter, and he is a huge mental health champion. He was made a point of, even the toughest guys in the firehouse have tough days. It's a stressful life. And I want to be there for the younger guys, was his mentality. I was like, wow, like that was my first mission moment during the run. And it was a powerful one of like, man, like this is why we're doing what we're doing. I hand this dude 2 purple wristbands for youth mental health. We close it off with a big hug. And it was wind in the wings. My feet still hurt. My ankles were still, flamed up. But I also knew that, look, any obstacle, we're going to find a way to keep working west. And we got to, because there's all these wonderful people we're going to connect with if we keep showing up and if we keep rolling forward. So many obstacles every day. I deal with self-doubt, whether it's during the run across the country or my daily life. And so much of life is finding a way to get back on that horse when we get knocked off.
And the fact that what pulled him through, right, was to be there for the younger.
Yes.
And so it's a perfect segue into the Run Far Foundation, right? Your foundation that you created tied to the run to raise funds for youth mental health initiatives, right? Just if you would just recap what that foundation is really intended to do beyond what I just described, and then we'll get into that a little bit more.
Thank you for asking. And this is my passion on this earth is I want to be like this awesome firefighter in Philadelphia. I want to be there for the younger guys and gals that are going through tough stuff, just like I did. And the way we do that, our model is we have kind of 3 segments here. One is called Run Far Community Grants. And so this is a young person aged 13 to 23 that has an idea for a volunteer service project in their community. They're trying to do some good, and their limitation may be the financial resources and the mentorship to make this cool volunteer service project happen, whether painting a mural, helping to restore a salmon stream, plant a vegetable garden, whatever your idea. We do micro grants up to $500 to help a young person make that happen. We've begun piloting that out in Montana, a place we ran through called Big Timber. And then our second is actually going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's really gratifying to make stuff happen and then to support that. Our second bucket is Run Far Clubs, which are after-school running clubs that meet on Wednesdays. And you're going to be training up to run a 10K over this 10-week program. So it's a long way when you're just getting into running, but it's running with a purpose. You're building connection, you're building community, you're building emotional resilience, some physical fitness, some like diet best practice, some healthy habits. You're getting some running shoes and running kit so that you kind of stick with it. And then you were actually doing an environmental conservation keystone project in your community, something that's good for the earth. We find that brings hope and optimism. We're launching our pilot on February 22nd on the Nisqually Reservation between Tacoma and Seattle. And we're really, really fired up to get that rolling and to build a curriculum that in time, anyone across the country can actually help launch. And so any teachers or educators listening, we'd love to have you join our waiting list and sign up for that. The third bucket, before I bore everybody to tears, is...
Oh, this is fantastic.
No, sweet. Yeah, I love it. I could go on forever. But yeah, the third and final bucket is it's all about empowering marathon racing network. So there's a lot of runners that run for their own mental health, and we want to equip every runner across the country, across the world, to become a champion for mental health. And so we do that in partnership with great race networks. Our debut is actually with the Dick's Pittsburgh Marathon. We're the official mental health partner for the Pittsburgh Marathon. And that's all about content and programming so that every runner in this network, there's over 100,000, can actually learn what it takes to be a mental health champion for yourself in your own path, but also be there for your classmates, your colleagues, your family, your friends. And when you're that champion, you're going to be so much more resilient yourself. And when you're taking care of yourself really well with some of the tips and techniques, you're going to be there for the folks in your life. So it's a virtuous cycle. Those are the 3 buckets we're building out. And it's really it's almost like research and development. We're still learning what works. We're trying to bring on best practices and build our team. So we're always looking to build. If any of that sounded interesting to you, I'd love to hear from you, because every day we're trying to learn and grow.
Best place to do so, Greg, is where? Is
runfarfoundation.com. And you can drop me an email, greg@runfarfoundation.com.
I love it. I love it. This is not done without, support and sponsorship. And
yes,
you just mentioned the Dick's Marathon in Pittsburgh. Other big supporters you want to give a shout out to who've really made a difference in getting things where they are?
Yeah, I'm really grateful to Brooks, a shoe sponsor going back to 2016. 3 pairs of shoes across the United States. These are really, really fantastic shoes. We're in talks now figuring out how do we provide the best kit for students that sign up for our running clubs so that everyone's running with a healthy pair of shoes to run happy. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't give a massive hat tip to PurePower. Every single day during the Run Across America, I am powering up, I'm powering down, I'm rebooting with PurePower. And there are a lot of days where just zero energy, and I am out of every macro there is, just so depleted, burning over 6,500 calories a day, trying to cover those 40 plus miles. And PurePower is the reason we're able to keep moving west. So, this community has been so deeply inspiring to me, just so many wonderful humans to uplift, and a phenomenal product. So I gotta give the biggest hat tip here, because it is remarkable, and it's nothing but gratitude and love from over here.
Well, thank you so much for that, Greg. It means so much to us as a small mission-driven company. And, I love the Run Far Foundation's focus on community-driven projects and movement. We've got 3 pillars in our inside out performance matrix, and movement is the second one. And what a difference it makes to mental health. And I assume that's why you've embedded that element.
Amen. And it's the pure chemical level of, dopamine, serotonin, get the good stuff rolling. And there's something really special that happens where we realize we're capable of more and our potential is way bigger than our present situation. And that's how I think young people and, old people and everybody in between, we can remember that, we are a work in progress. We're always getting a little bit better.
So, I know there were some moments, I'm thinking about moments in Pennsylvania and Ohio and thunderstorms and lightning, and moments when I'm certain it was very hard to just not want to crawl into a deep hole or go, get a boat drink somewhere on the beach. But you pressed forward, and how much of thinking about the mission and what you were out there for, the team behind you, made a difference?
Man, massive. And you're hitting the two nails on the head. So much of it is having a North Star. Why did you get started in the first place? I'm really fortunate because this was really deeply personal to me and then to the team that we recruited on board to help us make this happen. And so because of that, I knew like there's no way I'm quitting. I may have to get taken in some ambulance to some hospital and the plug may get pulled on me. And hey, that I can accept that. But I'm going to give everything I possibly can to make this happen. And the mission is that's the bullseye. That's the North Star that we're aiming for. It's vital. And it's vital no matter your goal. If you're trying to do anything, extraordinary, you've got to find that wellspring inside you. And then it's not enough just to have a big goal. It's not enough just to have a big mission. Even if you're very aligned on that, you need the right people in your corner. And, there were a lot of times out there where I am absolutely just beaten to a pulp and I feel so down and out. I'm thinking about back spasms on day 14. I've got a pretty strong core. I've never dealt with that. And yet I'm in some cornfield in Ohio and I'm, teary-eyed because my back is locking up. And I'm really fortunate. I've got a chiropractor, physio, nutritionist on the team who in the course of 15 minutes working on me has kind of cured what ailed me. And I don't even know what he did, but he's pressure pointing and trigger pointing and working through this. And it's man, his level of expertise and understanding of anatomy and of physio is such that in 15 minutes, he can solve a problem that would take me 15 weeks to work through without it. And as that's happening, I've got a second colleague. So in addition to Dr. Yosh, I've got Elise, who's now troubleshooting what food and nutrition do we need to be bringing in to help with this so that we're keeping this guy hydrated and fueled as we go forward. And that's 45 minutes a day in the life over there. There were so many of these moments of the crazy rain, the hailstorms, the tornado warnings, all that, where if I'm just by myself, I do curl up in a ball, in some drainage ditch and it's game over. And yet with the right crew, failure's not an option. We're going to keep working every problem as it emerges and keep moving west. My mantra, best team wins. I got really lucky. I got super, super lucky finding Dr. Yosh and Elise and Reed and Rock, who put in a ton of blood, sweat, and tears alongside me. And I'm the dude. I did run 3,156 miles, but none of that was by myself. It's with an incredible team in the corner. And that's my enduring lesson from all this is keep aiming for mission impossible, but you need the right team, the right crew to make any of it happen.
Well, you set out across the country with a purpose to raise awareness about mental health and addiction. What did you learn that surprised you or has just remained with you that you didn't quite appreciate when you set out?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, the universality of the challenges. I think teenagers across the country are going through a really tough time between the dislocations of COVID. A lot of people have lost family members. That's what initially sparked my own addiction challenges, was losing my grandpa. There's a lot of folks that have lost grandma and grandpa, mom and dad. That's tough. And you pair that with social media, the algorithms that keep sucking us back in, make us feel like our muscles aren't big enough or our physique is in a certain way or we're not cool enough. That is overwhelming. And that was already a big deal. I graduated high school in 2007. MySpace and LiveJournal and Facebook were already coming to the forefront. It's way worse now with Instagram, with TikTok and all this. So that's a really, it's universal and it's across every community we visited. We kept hearing that. At the same time, I think about the particular challenges where I am from a pretty affluent suburb, Bainbridge Island, Washington, where we have big challenges. We've dealt with suicides on the island. It's awful. We've dealt with eating disorders and depression and addiction and rehab. And it's every one of these is a tragedy, and it's awful. This is a place with a ton of resources. You compare that even a few miles south, northwest, east of us, there are profound challenges without the resources. And I'll give you a small example. I was on the Cheyenne Reservation crossing in Montana, some of the most beautiful country God has made. And I'm looking at these kids who, they're skillful basketball players. I wasn't good enough to guard them because I was so sore. They are also playing with, shoes where their toes are popping through. And that really hit me because I have never had that experience. I always had a new pair of shoes when I needed them. I always had a tennis racket or baseball glove I would work for. And there was a community that can pay, I'd earn $8 an hour so I could buy my own stuff as a teenager. That really hit me. And that's part of the impetus behind Run Far Club is we want to have a nationwide network of after-school programs. A lot of communities have no after-school programs. There's no safe place for kids to hang out, have a healthy community. No wonder alcohol and drugs are so tempting, because I want some source of meaning. I want a better reality than what I'm living right now. That's how I felt, even though there was a lot of good stuff around. And so we want to be a healthy connection point for kids, provide mentorship, and then provide some swag where, you get a pair of Brooks and you feel like $1 million, man, where I've got a new pair of shoes and shorts and shirt, a goal setting journal, some healthy snacks. And that was a big lesson. It's like the things I took for granted as a teenager, man, I'm a lucky guy, way luckier than I even realized at the outset of this. And we want to be part of a solution to level the playing field at least a bit, where kids have a healthier outlet and can be the best version of them and work toward that in connection and community.
Well, it seems, Greg, I remember your interaction, chance meeting with an elder in Cheyenne country, and how your relationship with running seems to have just continued to deepen, because we're going to get to in a moment what you did next within weeks of getting off of this cross-country journey. What was that experience like?
Man, it was profound. So I was really, really beaten down heading into Cheyenne country. The Rockies are right up ahead, and I just don't feel up for it at all. And so I need some inspiration somehow, some way. And God delivered. There at about midnight, I'm logging some late night hours. A dude pulls up in his truck, and he wants to know that I'm okay, because it's uncommon to see what he called a Christmas tree flashing in the night, because I'm so lit up, hobbling on the road. And this guy's named Cedric Fighting Bear. We have breakfast the next morning, and he is, out of everyone in my entire life that I've ever met, he has the most reason to be resentful or even hateful about the deck of cards he's been dealt in his life. Orphaned at a young age, beaten by a drunk uncle, lost every single sibling to disease, to accidents, to addiction, cheated by his employer out of lots and lots of money as a sawmill worker. And despite all of that, he is one of the happiest, most upbeat, most uplifted guys you're ever going to meet. And he's waving hello to dozens and dozens of folks on the reservation while we're having breakfast. And it was so special to hear his journey. Part of it, as he pointed up at the hills kind of above our little cafe, he used to run those hills. He was in a high school cross-country team. Back in the day, running had been a really big part of his life before diabetes slowed him down. And it was just so cool, man, just hearing that. And before he lets Yosh, Elise, and I head out, he blesses us with a little prayer where he burns a little cedar, some little fronds. He hands over a cedar shingle, a hawk's feather, and says this little prayer for us. And it's a prayer of safe passage. And these are totems of safe passage. And he reminds me that in Cheyenne tradition, runners were the great messengers to cover these distances. And he reminded me, you have an important message. You've got to bring, mental health awareness and wellness to the Pacific. And you still got 1,000 miles to go. So there's no time to waste. And giving Cedric Fighting Bear a big hug, I promised him I'd see him again. And he promises me that he's going to give me the VIP tour when I next make it to the reservation. And it was so sweet having that hawk's feather, that cedar shingle in the truck every mile all the way to the Pacific, and then actually getting to drive the truck back to Cheyenne country for Labor Day weekend in September and giving my man a big hug, buying him a cup of coffee and a breakfast together. And I got that VIP tour of the reservation. It was just unbelievably special. And that day I asked Cedric Fighting Bear to become our first advisory board member for Run Far Foundation. And he's a kindred spirit, man, just such a good dude who has faced unimaginable odds in his life. And yet he is still showing up, and he's a guy that you can't help but just love him when you first meet him. And there's a lot of guys like that that are trying to be there in their communities, and all in different shapes and forms, colors, socioeconomic status, faith, whatever. We are all on the same team. And Cedric Fighting Bear reminded me of kind of the urgency of this mission as he's inventorying the challenges folks face. So that was the boost. And that was a 1,000-mile boost, where that was the last time I needed motivation to get to the Pacific, in central Montana there.
These beacons of light that we come across, right? And it sounds like he was a very, very big one.
Yes.
Through the finish, over the Rockies and down to the Pacific. And coming into the Pacific, I suspect a little bit surreal that this journey that you dreamt of in 2011 that turned into a mission far beyond yourself was coming to a close. What was that like coming in for you personally?
It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming in a beautiful way. I felt so much just love and support and encouragement, really every step of this journey. And it was just so beautifully magnified the closer I got to Seattle, and then passing Seattle across Puget Sound down to the Pacific at Ocean Shores. It was beautifully overwhelming. And it was friends coming out to surprise me with, favorite snacks and foods. It was my buddy Andrew Thomas, who's just such a good dude, and another PurePower community member connection, coming out and just knew that I needed a little boost there after the high of Seattle. There were still a bunch of miles to cover, and just having that connection point, and then getting to run with Andrew into Ocean Shores. It's my favorite mile I've ever run, that 3,156th. And there's this impromptu parade complete with fire trucks and ambulances and cop cars and hundreds of townspeople that many of whom have dealt with really tough stuff, and many of whom have kids that are dealing with really tough stuff. And to be able to be part of, a spark for that community, Ocean Shores, Washington, that was really powerful. And it was a deal where I go and I dip my feet in the Pacific and just overwhelmed, where I'm not the most emotional guy, but it was, I don't think there were too many dry eyes at the coast, and definitely not mine. So it was beautiful. And I'm losing any articulation here, but it was absolutely beautiful.
I love that Andrew was there right at the end. It's such an impact on our team of ambassadors, and his motto, keep climbing that mountain.
Yes.
Right? And for you to finish, right? And then within weeks, you have another mountain to climb, another mission, right? Tell us about what prompted that, given that you've just, gone 80 plus days, and yet there is Mount Rainier off in the distance, this beautiful mountain on the shores of the Pacific outside Puget Sound. What about that next mission and the next one after that is so meaningful for you?
Yeah. So folks that have visited Seattle before, if you've got a clear day, which is relatively rare, but when you do, the dominant feature on the skyline is actually Mount Rainier, Tahoma. It's a mountain that has really captivated my attention and my heart since I was climbing cedar and evergreen trees as a kindergartner, looking out at the range there in the backyard. And getting up to the top years and years ago was a really special feeling. And then learning that no one had ever started at sea level there at Puget Sound and then made their way on their own 2 feet to the top. It just, that hit me. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to honor this really beautiful landmark and the wonderful communities in between. So yeah, it had been a big goal. I'd had that on the list for quite a while. I tried in 2021, assisted by my buddy Reed Block. We got as high as about 10,600 feet right above Camp Muir. And we got turned away because there had been too much melt. So I'd run 76 miles to Paradise. I'd climbed up, and it was super discouraging to get that close and not be able to actually go enjoy the summit. But yeah, 4,000 vertical feet short after all that. So that was back in 2021. I knew that I got to give this another shake. I was diagnosed with pre-melanoma on April 5th, 2022, 20 days before the Run Across America started. And I knew there was going to be a couple operations to get rid of this precancerous growth. It was going to be an invasive procedure, and it was going to put me on the shelf where I could hopefully keep, active, but who knows? And it was going to take away my fitness after getting shelved. So I had a 3-week window after finishing the run before the first of these operations. And I thought, look, if I don't make it off this little like operating table, I want to honor the gift. And this is something I've just wanted to do since I can remember. I got to get after it. And God works in mysterious ways. I do this run with amazing support from Andrew. He came out and knocked out a bunch of these miles, was super supportive. And then Savannah is our crew chief, just incredible team, got me to Paradise. I ended up soloing from there up, and it profoundly spiritual experience touching the top, and it just felt aligned and it felt right. Coming back down, a couple of friends, tweet, congratulations to me. And one of the new friends from the internet happens to be the executive director of the Nisqually Land Trust. And Jeanette Dorner runs an incredible organization preserving these wild lands that have been in the stewardship of the Nisqually people since time immemorial. And introduction, we now are starting our founding Run Far Club in partnership with Nisqually Indian tribe. There are mysterious ways and a beautiful path that I don't think we can always comprehend, but there's some greater purpose at play. And that's why I think I felt the conviction to let's go get it. We have a beautiful weather window. Let's go climb this mountain from Puget Sound up. And we did. And now, just over a month away, we're going to launch the first Run Far Club in partnership. And it all started that day on the run to Mount Rainier.
The things you can't anticipate that just open up, right?
My goodness.
And I wonder how your relationships with others and with yourself have evolved, Greg, since setting out from the shores of the Atlantic. How do you feel like just your relationships have changed?
Yeah, I'm one of these guys where I think for a long time in my journey, I've really needed the validation of achievement to feel whole and to feel kind of complete. Yeah, man. I mean, now birds of a feather, and we click on so many levels, brother. And I that's still me today. Though when you make your biggest dream happen, it puts things in a new perspective where I had so many friends give so much time, money, effort, encouragement, love. It's remarkable. And I am so grateful for that. I'm really trying to enter a season of giving back. And I've been given such a gift to have had this experience and this adventure. It would be totally selfish for me just to sit on this or for me to not honor that gift and everything my friends and family and supporters have provided. So that has really shifted things where I am really mission aligned. I am really gung ho to make stuff happen here. And it really feels like there's a higher purpose kind of with the tailwind behind us. So that's been really, really big. And it's given me an opportunity to get into schools and talk to kids. It's given me a chance to connect with wonderful people that probably wouldn't have met otherwise. And I'm just trying to remember that the things I have now are the things I prayed for years and years and years. And man, what a blessing. And even on my hard days, man, quit complaining, get back to work, smile on this, because this is a good problem to have. And you're busy because there are a bunch of new demands in your time. Awesome. That is a blessing. That is your cup overflowing from all these blessings. And there's no room for woe is me. Let's put our head down and make some stuff happen, because so many folks have invested in this, and we want to do what's right. And we want to make some big stuff happen to help folks that are in need here. And we can. And so we should.
Well, it's, it's an understatement to say your journey's an inspiration to so many, Greg. The power of the purpose behind it, right? And the mission and the next one, you're doing that again and again and again. Is that what you want to leave the PurePower community with as we wrap up our conversation? Any other message you want to share with the community, those that may be struggling, those that may be feeling on top, that you want to leave people with?
Yeah, my little mantra in this season is keep showing up. There have been a lot of days since the run where I can feel overwhelmed, and the remedy and the solution every single time, keep showing up. For me, it's getting a couple miles, clearing my mind, just trying to be present. And I know a lot of us have beautiful high highs and big seasons, and then there are some dark and gloomy and challenging ones. No matter what, I think when we keep showing up, that's where the magic happens.
I love it. I love it. Great. Greg, thank you so much for for making the time for our conversation, and remind everyone how best to connect with Run Far Foundation and you.
Yeah, so I would love to hear from you. I'm on Instagram, Greg Runs Far, and then also Run Far Foundation on Instagram. And then you can also find both those .com. So gregrunsfar.com, runfarfoundation.com. And for the emailers out there, greg@runfarfoundation.com. Would love to hear from you. I love this community, means a great deal to me. And it's even better when we connect. So please do reach out. I'd love to hear from you.
Great, Greg. Looking forward to joining you on the next Rainier, whatever that might be.
Yes.
We've missed a few, but we're going to make that happen.
Heck yes. Don, you are a blessing. I so appreciate you. Thank you for all you do to bring us together.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Greg. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.